Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives of families of critically ill patients in intensive care, so that you can have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. This is another episode of Your Questions Answered, and in last week's episode I answered another question from one of our readers, and the question last week was: my mum has been in ICU for 3 weeks now and she's on ECMO for ARDS. Will she survive? That was actually part 5 of the question last week. You can also check out previous questions from our reader Ellie regarding her mum in ICU on ECMO if you're clicking on the links below this video. So far there have been 5 questions in total, and Ellie has also been featured in our podcast in an interview that you can check out again if you're clicking on the link below this video. So in this week's episode of Your Questions Answered, I want to answer another question from Ellie, because Ellie's mum went back into ICU after she's been discharged to the ward. So this week's episode of Your Questions Answered is part 6 of my mum has been in ICU for 3 weeks now and she's on ECMO for ARDS. Will she survive? Today Ellie writes: Hi Patrick. So my mum is back in a side room in ICU now and on 80% of oxygen with Optiflow nasal bronchs. She has pneumonia with pulmonary edema. She's been on super strength antibiotics for 24 hours, so hopefully by 48 hours it will kick in. They keep putting back big space masks on, which is BiPAP or something like that, which my mother hates. They have the ventilation option in waiting, just in case, which I'm praying they don't use, of course. My mother has the strength in her arms and legs now and can take off the mask with the left hand. She even tricked my brother last night when giving her water with sponges and asked him to hold the cup, then drank the cup by pulling it to her mouth. She also fell out of bed a few days ago as she managed to swing her legs round slowly and pulled herself up. Her reason was she was practicing her physiotherapy. It's amazing to see that her strength is coming back, and I'm hoping that she's not losing it all of that if they need to ventilate her again in intensive care. I have asked if she's not to be given any muscle relaxants this time. I'm really not keen on her doctor this week, who is very brief and full of cliches. He keeps mentioning her critical myopathy and weakness, but she's actually getting stronger, and if she had food, water and sleep, because she got no sleep last night as they didn't give her sleeping pills as they were assessing her every hour in intensive care, she would get so much stronger. Before this infection they were talking about trying her walking within a week. The doctor's reason for my mother not eating and drinking is that they think she aspirated, as I mentioned before. But she didn't choke or cough when she had food and water, and I believe her swallow and cough is much stronger than they are aware of. But she only seems to talk in general terms and it's not very specific. I believe the swallowing tests are ludicrous, with water tests 2 weeks ago with a teaspoon of water suddenly given to her, which is completely unnatural. My theory for why she got this infection is that she was given strawberry yogurt 3 times a day and super sweet milkshake every 2 hours and was not given mouth care in the normal ward. It was good in ICU, and in ICU in London they were obsessive about mouth care and she wasn't even eating then. They didn't do any except maybe twice a day, and I believe that the bacteria in her mouth multiplied and got into the lungs. I wish I had insisted on it and insisted in giving her vegetable soup instead of yogurt, as she's diabetic anyway and she shouldn't have sweet stuff. Anyway, it's all very frustrating. Thanks for reading. I will update you with any other news. I didn't realize this saga would go on so long. It's quite good to be able to write, and I know that you know what I'm talking about. Ellie. Hi Ellie. I'm so sorry to hear that your mother is back in ICU. It's been a hell of a ride for you and your family, and there just seems to be no end in sight. I can't tell you from afar why the infection has come back. The lack of mouthcare on the ward may well be a contributor, and you're correct to point out that in ICU or HDU we are obsessed about mouthcare, especially when patients aren't eating. The lack of food on the ward and the lack of proper and regular mouthcare could have contributed to the infection coming back, and at the end of the day it's all speculation. Of course, what you have also mentioned repeatedly is that the infection could always come back because of her previous pneumothoraxes or holes in her lungs, as you referred to, and that may have come back as an infection. Also, you're correct to point out that the lack of proper nutrition and also the lack of proper and speedy assessment from speech pathology may well contribute to the infection coming back. What I don't understand, Ellie, is did they keep feeding your mother via the nasogastric tube or via a PEG tube, which is a tube into the tummy where you can feed, where you can give nutrition through. This should have been happening whilst your mother was or is still unable to eat properly. This would have been and still is crucial going forward to give your mother the nutrition she needs whilst she is still unable to eat. As for now, whilst your mother is back in intensive care, they will hold off any feeds, because not only for need of assessing her breathing, but also if she needs ventilation, she needs to be nil by mouth. God forbid for your mother going back on the ventilator. What they might do is putting her on BiPAP ventilation, which is mask ventilation, if the Optiflow nasal prongs need escalation. The BiPAP may well keep her off the ventilator with a tube, and whilst uncomfortable, it's certainly the better option compared to the ventilator with a tube in her throat. As far as your mum's pulmonary edema goes, I'm wondering why she is in pulmonary edema. Did they give her too many fluids? Did she drink too much? Are her kidneys not working properly? Or did they mention anything about her heart being weak and not coping with fluids? The things that are mentioned tend to be the main reasons for pulmonary edema. Pulmonary edema shouldn't be underestimated and can well lead to ventilation. What they should be doing is to give your mother some furosemide or Lasix, which is a diuretic drug that increases urine output and gets rid of excess fluids. The main thing now is to keep your mother off the ventilator and have the tracheostomy to go back in. Therefore, the BiPAP may well be the way to go, even though it's uncomfortable. Ellie, it is the unfortunate reality that after a long critical illness, setbacks do happen, and I have seen many patients who stayed in ICU for a long time coming back and still going out again alive and eventually going home. I know you and your mother are living through your worst nightmare ever, and you need to stay strong, as you have been coping remarkably well with all the challenges and setbacks. Also, here are some links to everything you need to know about BiPAP. So there are some links to some articles. Number 1 is, what is BiPAP? Number 2 is, how long is a patient kept on a BiPAP machine in intensive care? And the third article you can click on, the link below, is non-invasive ventilation or NIV. I hope that helps, Ellie. Let me know if you have any questions. Also, keep at it and let me know if there's anything else I can help you with. How can you have peace of mind, control, power and influence whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free Instant Impact report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You get 5 killer tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to peace of mind, control, power and influence in your situation. You'll get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You'll get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. And how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care. And it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's Your Questions Answered episode, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also check out our blog section for more tips and strategies, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.